Hello everyone and welcome back to my channel, BethChatsBooks. Now today's video is going to be part 2 of my February book haul. Again, I just want to apologise for the very rickety quality of filming and how it keeps wobbling. I'm just precariously bouncing a pile of books on my iPad on my brother's bed because I'm having to bulk film a lot of stuff and his room seems to be the only available place to film at the moment because the lighting is crappy in my room, and I've tried positioning in loads of different places and this seems to be the best spot. So I'm sorry that every time I pick a book up the iPad wobbles a bit. It doesn't like being on a pile of books, but I've had very limited options. So let's just get into the book haul. So the first book that I want to talk about on part 2 of my book haul is Virginia Woolf's Mrs. Dalloway. So on part 1 of my February book haul I mentioned how in my classics video a couple of weeks back, which I'll link down below, I hauled a couple of classics in the Penguin cloth-bound classic editions in hardback. One of them was Madame Bovary, which I mentioned in the last one. This book was also on that video. It wasn't a Penguin cloth-bound classic, it was a big tie-in edition of all of Virginia Woolf's most famous works in a massive hardback. Now, I decided to buy this one in paperback because, like I mentioned on the first video, I do find it hard to read hardbacks, especially pretty hardbacks of books, because I don't want to damage them. But I really wanted to get around to reading Mrs. Dalloway because I believe that is her most famous work, and I really want to get into her style of writing, which is famous for being a stream of consciousness without much punctuation. So I wanted a paperback where I could enjoy the reading experience without thinking I'm going to damage the book. These are a beautiful edition called Vintage Classics paperbacks, and they have got all of the Virginia Woolf collection in these. So this is Mrs. Dalloway, but there is Waves, A Room of One's Own, and all the other classics that she has in these pretty editions, and they're lovely. They have kind of French flaps on them with a different pattern inside and quotes and things. They have them on both sides. So I believe if I enjoy this and I want to collect her works, I might collect them in these Vintage Classics paperback editions because they're just beautiful and they're nice and floppy as well. So I will get to this as soon as I can. I don't really know much apart from she's famous for the stream of consciousness. People kind of name drop Virginia Woolf all the time, and this is one of the texts that people name drop a lot without telling you anything about what it's about. But I believe, again, this might be a book that benefits from going in blind to it and not knowing much. So I'm sorry, but I've got nothing to tell you about this book because I don't really know until I read it. Sorry. And then the next book that I'm going to talk about is also along a similar vein to what I've just talked about with Virginia Woolf, and that is Anne Bronte's The Tenant of Wildfell Hall. That seems like an easy sentence to say, but I've just struggled with that for about 10 minutes. Like I just mentioned, this I do have in Penguin Clothbound Classic Edition, which I mentioned in my classics video. However, again, I don't want to read the hardback and damage it. So I've got this edition. Now, there were some very, very cheap ones on Book Depository that aren't as pretty, but this was very reasonably priced, and this is a collection also called Vintage Classics, and I just think this is a beautiful edition. They have Wuthering Heights, they have Jane Eyre in these editions, and they also have the beautiful French flaps that give way to a pretty image on both sides and quotes from the book and the inside, and they have a quote on the back. So the quote on this one says, "Will you let me take our child and what remains of my fortune and go?" So I've heard recently a lot of people rave about this. I think this is about a breakdown of a marriage and how she wants to escape the main character. I haven't actually heard as much about Anne's classic as I have obviously about Wuthering Heights and Jane Eyre by her sisters. They're very renowned for their plots and a lot of people talk about them willy-nilly. But this one I came across, I watched the Bronte adaptation a few months ago, and it was quite interesting because it portrayed that Anne became quite successful a lot faster than, for example, Charlotte was considered always my favourite because Jane Eyre is my favourite book, but then I thought, how can she be my favourite if I haven't read all the sisters? So it made me very intrigued to read this one because this seemed to be quite successful quite early on when they published their works. But this was published before Jane Eyre. So I would love to know what her writing style is like in comparison to her sisters. With Wuthering Heights and Jane Eyre, I appreciated that I didn't know anything about the plots when I went into the book so that I could appreciate it. So maybe it's an instance similar to to Virginia Woolf, similar to other ones I've mentioned, that maybe I should go in blind. I'm kind of using the term going in blind as an excuse for not bothering to know the synopsis of the plots, as you can tell from part 1 and this video. So I'm a little bit guilty doing that. But there we are, that's another book. This one is very chunky monkey, and the font seems quite small, so this is a bit of a hefter, which I didn't really expect because Jane Eyre and Wuthering Heights aren't actually very big books. But a lot of people rave about Anne, so I thought I have to get round to reading all the sisters and completing that, so that's why I've got it. And paperbacks are easier for me to read, like I've said, so there we go. And the next book I want to talk about is Katherine Ardennes' The Bear and the Nightingale. Now, I wanted to pick this up for ages, and then this is also blown up on BookTube. I think books like Woe have talked about this. This book has got a lot of magical realism in it. I think a lot of people compare this one and The Magic Circus as books that they really enjoy that have elements of magical realism in them. Now, this is set in Russia. I'm just going to read you the blurb because this one is informative to what the book is actually about. So, in a village at the edge of the wilderness of northern Russia, where the winds blow cold and the snow falls many months of the year, an elderly servant tells stories of sorcery, folklore, and the Winter King to the children of the family, tales of old magic frowned upon by the church. But for the young wild Vasa, these are far more than just stories. She alone can see the house spirits that guard her home and sense the growing forces of dark magic in the woods. So that sounds really exciting because that's kind of dark. I haven't read much magical realism and I really want to get into reading more because I'm still uncertain whether it's something that I'll actually enjoy or not. Because I know I enjoy historical fiction, I know I enjoy psychological books and books with a lot of depth of characters, but I haven't dipped my toes enough into magical realism to say whether I like it or not. But this has been raved about. I love the idea of Russian fairy tales. I know a lot of people on BookTube rave about fairy tales and folklore, Jen Campbell being a big lover of both of those things. So I think I'm going to try this book out and see if I really like it. A lot of people on BookTube have really enjoyed it. I think the cover is stunning, it's beautiful, seems very magical and wintry, and while it's still winter, I'm going to try and get to it. So there's that one. The next book that I want to talk about, ironically I just mentioned her, and that is The Beginning of the World in the Middle of the Night by Jen Campbell. Now, the minute this came out, I wanted it. I wanted to pre-order it, and then I thought, no, it's too expensive just for a book. Just wait until the hype's gone down a little bit and then you can order it for yourself. So I saw it on Book Depository at a really reasonable price, and I was like, now is my time. Now is my time. So I've been in awe of everyone that's had this book in recent months because it's a naked hardback, but look how beautiful it is. I think the heart image is beautiful, stunning. It's such a beautiful cover. And I think I saw Books Cut Create. I'm really sorry if I butchered that, but I'll link it down below. She did nail art that was in the theme of this book, the imagery that was on the hardcover. And it was stunning. It's such a great video, so I want to link that down below so you can go check that out. This is a collection of short stories. I know she's done a lot about being a bookseller. A lot of her other books are kind of about anecdotes about being a bookseller, and I know she's done a lot of children's literature, but this seems to be the first step into kind of short story collections for her. And I know that she's mentioned on her channel, and I'll link a video down below where she's talked about it, she used Frankenstein as massive inspiration for a lot of the stories behind this collection, and obviously for the cover as well. So on one of her videos she bought the Penguin Clothbound Classic Edition of Frankenstein that's got the hearts on it, and I'm also buddy reading Frankenstein this month with Serena over at A Wandering Mind. I'll link her channel down below. Hey girl. So I'm really excited because I can then get the Frankenstein references when I read this. Sounds really exciting when I read you the blurb. It says stories of family and magic, lost souls and superstition, spirits in jam jars, mini apocalypses, heart animals and sideshows. Mermaids are on display at the local aquarium. A girl runs a coffin hotel on a remote island, and a couple are rewriting the history of the world in the middle of the night. So it's got amazing reviews on the back. It sounds really whimsical, really beautiful. I want to read more magical realism, and short stories is a really exciting and digestible way to read that. I've really wanted to read the Grimm's Fairy Tales collection for years now. So if I really enjoy this, then I think I might also pick up the Grimm's Fairy Tale collection. so that I can get more into the stories, as it's always something that's intrigued me, but I haven't experimented enough in my reading tastes and trials to know whether I like it. So I had to read this. I love Jen Campbell's channel. I love what she's all about, and I really wanted to support her. So I bought this book. So there's that. And then the last 3 books all have a similar theme. So I went to Stratford this weekend with my boyfriend because it was a belated present from my auntie, my mum. So thank you guys. We adored it. We went to Shakespeare's birthplace, new place. We went to Anne Hathaway's cottage. We went to Hall's Croft. We wanted to go to Mary Ardennes' Tudor house, but that's shut for winter. We bought a pass, which means you can go back for a whole year and not pay any ticket prices to go in. So anyway, aside from that, before I went, as a belated present, birthday present, my boyfriend's mother bought me A Midsummer Night's Dream by William Shakespeare. So that's when we went to the Globe in London. She bought this for me, which I received last month. So it's one of these beautiful editions. It's Macmillan Collector's Library edition. It was not making it easy for me to find that. So they're these beautiful kind of turquoisey duck egg blue colour, and then they have a beautiful image, and then it's kind of gold along the side, and they've got all of Shakespeare's collections in these editions. And then while we were at Stratford, I received a package from my auntie with the Hamlet William Shakespeare copy, and she bought me this because we've decided after we went to the Globe, me and my boyfriend, when we went to Chelmsford and then we went to go visit the Globe with his mother, that we really wanted to go and watch a production in the Globe Theatre, but they obviously don't do productions in winter. So we've organised with my auntie, me, Ben and my auntie, to go see Hamlet in the Globe this coming June. So she'd ordered me this so that I can read Hamlet before we go, because this is one of the plays I haven't read, but one of the plays that I really think I'm going to enjoy. And it's all about revenge, and it's very dark, and it's one of his more famous plays. So I'm really excited that she just decided to send it me so that I can read it before then. It's a nice floppy edition. I think it's also got some educational tools in here to get your head around reading it. So I'm really excited to read this before June, before we go and see it. So that's really exciting. So that's all my Shakespeare related stuff. I'm on a bit of a Shakespeare hype. I'm hoping, I really want to buy Bill Bryson's book on Shakespeare, and obviously while we were in Stratford there were so many bookshops that were William Shakespeare related. There were so many gift shops when you went through all the houses, so I kept noticing that book. So I'm going to look on Book Depository and see if it's there, and maybe read that in the upcoming months, because I kind of am on a little bit of a Shakespeare hype. But this last final book I want to mention is, while we were at Stratford upon Avon, we went to an Oxfam, and I still like supporting Oxfam shops. I know there's been a lot of controversy recently with a lot of the bad press that they've been getting, but I personally think you can get some great books there, and I think they do support a good cause, and I think they're just having a rough period. So I didn't want to stop supporting them, and I know some people will vehemently disagree with me about that. I think it's still a great place to find books and to support charities, so I personally did go into an Oxfam and I did pick up a book. So the book that I did pick up was Perfume by Patrick Suskind. Oh god, sorry I butchered that. So I got this book for £2.50, £2.49, which is an absolute bargain. Over at the Banging Book Club they did a podcast a few months back now where they mentioned this one. It's really interesting. It's about a guy who has a really great sense of smell, and he is trying to work on fragrances in Paris and creating perfumes, but he is obsessed with the scent of a young virgin and he can't kind of capture that, and so he goes on kind of a killing spree to try and bottle this fragrance of a young virgin. And obviously it's very dark, very psychotic, very messed up, but every time someone's raved about this, it's just kind of sending that little bell in my head that goes, yes, that sounds interesting, yes, that's something I'd like. And I was at one point going to order it on Audible and listen to it, but then when I found this in Oxfam I was like, this is perfect, because it was really cheap. Now I've got it in my collection, so I can definitely get around to reading it, because it's been one that's been darting on and off my to buy list for months now. So I'm so glad I've got that, and I'm really excited to read it. So that's everything for part 2 of my February book haul. I hope you enjoyed this video. Please hit the subscribe button if you want to be alerted for when my part 3 book haul is coming out and when all my other tag videos and other things are coming out. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll see you very soon with a new video. Bye!